What's going on, everyone? I'm Kayla, and I'm grateful to be an alcoholic. I'm currently sitting in a car with a bunch of other ESCYPAA committee members after having dinner, and I feel very blessed to be able to do that and be of service to AA in this capacity. Currently serving as our outreach chair in ESCYPAA, which thank you so much for that shout out. Hope to see all you guys there in October. But yeah, my story. I grew up in a very loving home, right? Like I had everything a young girl needed. I had love, food, shelter, clothing. I needed nothing, but I wanted so much more all the time, right? From a very young age, I just always wanted more and nothing was ever enough, including myself, right? Like whoever Kayla was never enough. I didn't know who I was, nor did I like my idea of who I was. And I always sought to do better, be better, and just be someone who I'm not. And, that started at a young age with sports. I got into sports and, I'd beat myself up if I wasn't voted the MVP at the end of each season, because that means I wasn't good enough in my head. And even when I still wasn't good enough. I'll find something all the time that just equates to me not being good enough. And therefore, my idea growing up was just like, I don't want to be me, and I would find any way to try and escape that feeling. So by the time I was in high school is when I picked up my first drink and substance. It didn't change who I was, but it changed how I thought about myself. This confidence poured in, and I was able to laugh and smile and be silly because I'm a silly goose, that's for sure. Um, Immediately from the day that I picked up that drink, wanted to feel that way all the time, right? I learned in the doctor's opinion about this allergy, right? Like this craving beyond my mental control developed that day, and I didn't know it was happening. So from there, things progressed, and I kept drinking, right? I kept drinking, I kept drugging, I kept doing what was helping me escape being me. I loved it when I blacked out, and I did that often. And because I didn't have to be there when whatever was happening, whenever I was being me, I didn't have to be there, and that was a comfortable thing for me. So when I woke up and I couldn't remember, I was happy with that. I like to say my truth, which is that it wasn't always bad, right? Like there was some fun times. I don't want to talk about how I drank or what I used and all of that because none of that matters. Like what matters is that I'm an alcoholic and I know that. And today I have a solution in my life, which is Alcoholics Anonymous. But I will tell you some places that it took me. So like when it was fun and things were good, it took me to places like house parties, raves down in Brooklyn, and eventually it took me to a tropical island where I was partying on yachts, hanging out with millionaires. I thought I made it, 100% thought I made it, and the reality is that I didn't. But eventually the fun started to wear off, the progression kicked in, and nothing else mattered except for getting the next fix, whatever it looked like, right? Like I always wanted more. I was a garbage head, I like to call, right? Like whatever you offered me, I'd say yes to. I would try it. Even if I knew I didn't like it, because I've tried it before, I would still do it. And that's just insanity, right? And that was what my life turned into. And so once things got bad and it turned dark, it was starting to take me to places like my mom's jewelry cabinet, random strangers' basements. It took me to a place where I was willing to sell my body to a man to get what I needed. And ultimately, it took me to a place where I had enough courage to end my life. Originally, what landed me into recovery was I had suffered from a stroke at the age of 26 due to my alcohol and drug use. And no 26-year-old should be stroking. I was in the stroke unit with a bunch of people in their 70s and 80s, them looking at me confused why I was there. So from there, I was shipped off to my first rehab where I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. And, all these old men were bringing meetings in and they were sharing war stories. And I mean, like literal war stories, like Vietnam War stories. And I couldn't identify with these men. And they kept telling me to just identify with the feelings, don't compare the experience and the situations. But I don't know about anyone else, but I was incapable of identifying my own feelings in that time. It was impossible for me to identify with yours. So I had a really hard time with that. And eventually, these two young girls came up to bring a meeting into my rehab. The girl was 18, who was the speaker, and she claimed to have 2 years of sobriety. And I thought, BS. Yeah, right. Why would you waste your time to come up here and lie to me? Like, that's stupid, right? And I went as far to go up to talk to the speaker to catch her in a lie when I realized she was telling me the truth. And I realized that she had been through some of the same pain that I had also been through. Just to backtrack, earlier that same day, I was sitting in the cafeteria at the lunch at the rehab, and I was the class clown. I was taking nothing seriously. Like, I was only at rehab so I didn't become homeless. I had no intentions of being sober because I didn't know what that looked like for me. And if I don't know, I don't want it. And that's been my story. Earlier that day, there's a girl there that was at this rehab for her 8th time, and she had looked at me and said, "Do you even want to be sober?" And I looked around the cafeteria and thought, "Do any of you want to be sober? That sounds ridiculous to me." And then those young girls came in, and when she shared with me, one-on-one, when I went to talk to her, I realized like maybe I can give this a shot. It doesn't sound so bad. She was telling me about these parties she would go to and like all the people she's met. It gave me the inspiration that maybe I'll give this a shot. And so I did. And I got out of that rehab, went into sober living, got a home group, got a commitment, got a sponsor, and I started to learn the steps. And I say it that way on purpose because I wasn't living them and I wasn't experiencing them. I was just learning them. I was sitting down with this woman, reading the book, going through the motions, and I was putting like quarter measures in, forget half measures. It was like quarter measures. I was reading it. That was it. My life started to look better on the outside, right? Like I went back to school. I got my high school diploma. I got my learner's permit finally to legally be behind a wheel. And, I thought like I was getting the results, right? Because the outside was all looking good. But inside, I was still pretty miserable. From the very beginning, we learned that honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness is indispensable in this program. And from the very beginning of me attempting recovery, I was still lying. I was still stealing. I was still being manipulative. I wasn't doing the program. I wasn't living it. I was a fraud. Eventually, life happened, right? And I was faced with some emotional pain. And I did all the things that I was told I was supposed to do in that time, which is like get to a meeting, call some people, call your sponsor, pray, did all these things. After claiming that I was building a connection with the higher power and that I was working this program, I realized that all of that was not true, because when it came time that I needed power from something other than myself, I had no connection with it. Because the entire time that I was attempting recovery, I was building a connection with my own ego. And so when I fell back, I was basically left with myself to save myself. And as you could probably imagine, it didn't work. I picked up again. And then, I found myself in a basement, picking up right where I left off. Like nothing had ever changed, doing all the things I was doing before, willing to sell my body again. And the difference this time is that all you people were in my head. I had heard the messages of hope. I had heard the life that was literally there for me if I was willing to put the work in. And I just felt completely hopeless, like I was never going to get it. They talk about how it works, about being constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. And I thought I was one of those people. With enough pain, after about 2 weeks, I decided that I just needed to end it all because I was never going to get this. I was sitting on Zoom meetings, trying to get back into recovery, and I just couldn't do it because I lacked the power. That never clicked while I was sitting in these Zoom meetings. I just didn't have the power to do it. So I decided to end my life, and I calculated everything I was going to do and like make this work. And I did it. And I woke up the next day. Two things happened to me that morning. First, I woke up and I was like, oh no, I messed up. It's Mother's Day. I have to go hang out with my mom and I'm suicidal. This is just great. And then the next thing that happened is that I physically felt, it was almost like a warm hug, but internally, right? Like I felt this power around me, and that there was something else out there that had a plan for me, because my plan didn't pan out, right? And for the first time in my life, I had felt a connection with this power greater than me that all you guys were talking about in the rooms that I was claiming that I had. I accepted that like maybe there is something else out there. Maybe I should just give it a shot again. And so I went home to my mom on Mother's Day and I said, hi, Mom, happy Mother's Day. I need to go to rehab. And I started my journey over, and I went out to rehab. And while I was there, funny thing happened is I was sitting around the women's lounge with all these women just joking, laughing, writing their notes to the boys, and thought to myself, do you guys even want to be sober? The roles had reversed on me. And here I was, the one that like really wanted this, was willing to put everything into it. And like that girl in that rehab my first time, and I got out. I got a new home group. I got a new sponsor. I got a new commitment. And I started to live and experience these steps. I don't think my first time around that I truly conceded to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic, but that 2-week relapse was tangible evidence to me that I absolutely possess this allergy and I absolutely am an alcoholic. And I can't stop on my own, right? Like I lack the power over alcohol. Like if it's just me and alcohol and nothing else, I'm going to drink it. I think that gave me the willingness to continue working the steps and living them. And as I did, my life internally got better. Maybe the outsides didn't look so great. I didn't have all the things that I wanted in life, but it didn't matter, because inside I started to feel more and more at peace the more I worked the program. And I started to meet some other young people around me that were having like a good time, and they were sober and they were talking about God so lovingly. And I wanted that, right? So I started to hang out with those people. And I got invited out to a house party, which was a big dub after party, which I was like, yo, these people are sober. Like they look like the people I used to rave with. Like, you're sure they're sober? But they were, and they were all going to a camp out the following weekend. And I was still very egotistical. And I said, I don't need new friends. I was very happy with the group of friends I had. I didn't want to go to this camp out. I like to say, I'm a power tools butch, not a dirt butch. So I don't do camping. I wound up being peer pressure to go. All these people were going. So I was like, all right, I'll go because I still want to fit in, right? And I went. And while I was there, this was the ESCYPAA camp out last September. While I was there, I met so many more amazing people in recovery that were having fun and doing service. And there was a moment Saturday morning where everyone was down on the beach doing yoga, and I refused to do yoga. And so I sat outside my tent and I was working on my last list on my fourth step. And I finished it and I went into my tent and I meditated, right, on the experience because it was so beautiful. It was like a canopy of trees over me. Birds are chirping. I'm on this beautiful campgrounds on Long Island that I didn't even know existed. I've lived here my whole life. And I just meditated on that whole experience. And by the time I came to, I heard voices, right? It had been about an hour and a half. Like people were done with yoga already. They were already starting to make lunch. And I realized in that moment that I was okay, that I could sit alone with my thoughts, with my God, and be okay. And that was a really profound thing for me because I never felt like I was okay to be alone. Like I'm a very social person. And I think now that it was more of a coping mechanism to being afraid to be alone. It was really powerful for me. And for the first time ever, I felt like it was okay to just be me. So I went out in my tent and I went and talked to some more people. I had a great time. I painted a picture of some random guy fishing on the water. And later that night, they had the meeting around the campfire, and I could only share one thing, and it was that I was grateful that I could find peace and solitude. It was a really profound moment for me, and I wanted to help other people experience or have experiences like that. And so I asked a few people, and they said, join the committee. Like, this is what we do. That's why we put these events on. And I joined the ESCYPAA committee where we bid to hold ESCYPAA and won that bid and was awarded the conference. And now I've been blessed beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I've traveled the country. I actually had to make a whole list today of all the places that I've been this year in order to outreach for ESCYPAA. And what a beautiful opportunity. And the thing about ESCYPAA that I love the most is that it gives young people an opportunity to get involved in service below the group level that maybe you wouldn't be elected into a position, say, possibly at your area or district level, right? Like, it doesn't matter. You have 6 months sober, but you want to take a service position. Come on, join the committee, get involved. And that for me changed everything because I didn't know what I was doing. And while I was there, people would ask me, do you have a service sponsor? And I didn't know what that meant. And I asked, and they told me, it's someone that's going to take you through the traditions and concepts and be there to answer your questions as it pertains to service because they've done it before, right? And like I had a sponsor and I was working closely with that sponsor and I still do today, but I have a service sponsor that I can go to for that. And that's another level of AA that I didn't know existed. And ESCYPAA was able to introduce me to that. Today, like the craziest thing, I came to AA because I thought I needed to stop drinking. And God revealed way more to me. God revealed that I needed a good group of genuine friends in my life, that I needed the noise in between my ears to quiet, and that I needed to find peace wherever I was as long as I knew that my God was there. And those are the things that AA has given me that I didn't ask for, but I definitely needed. I'm Kayla, grateful to be an alcoholic. Thank you guys.